Hey.
Howdy.
So Thursday night, we finally got some sleep, and the Slayer reunion happened,
Yeah.
which no one thought would happen.
Yeah.
And now you've got those 2 shows under the belt. There were going to be 3, but then stormed out in Louisville.
Yep.
How do you feel?
How do I feel? Wow. That's a really good question. I'm kind of a bit drained. Sacramento there were a lot of guests there, a lot of friends, not to mention the show. So it was a lot of energy just put out. But, each one of the shows kind of felt that way because I don't know, it was kind of overwhelming because I never thought it would happen again. So, yeah, it was, a lot of relearning songs that you really thought you did know, but you hadn't played them for 5 years. So, I don't know, it was great. I feel like it was probably one of the best live experiences I had because the fans were really into it. They were hungry for it, and that kind of made it special.
I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that the world went to shit right after Slayer retired. Also, during the show, you were like bathed in fire.
Yeah.
How did you play through that? I mean, I felt like I had a sunburn at the end of the show.
It's not a matter of how, you just got to do it. I mean, that's what I'm always conditioned for heat, and it's hot, but it's not like a humid like show in a small club where there's no oxygen.
It's the proverbial dry heat.
It's a dry heat. Yeah, exactly. So you just put your head down and do it. And the guys around me are professionals. They know what they're doing, so I don't think twice about it.
And it's been a crazy year for you. Kerry King Band launched, and you guys played Europe, and then Slayer reunion got announced, and now you're bringing it back home to play San Francisco at the Regency, January 15th. I'm very excited about this. I got to see you guys at the Forum, so I know how tight you guys sound and how great the new music is, but what's it like bringing it home?
Well, that was one of the funny things about the tour we did with Lamb of God and Macedon, is that we were all saying, like, wow, like, why didn't we play the Bay Area? So we played in Portland, skipped past the Bay Area and went all the way to LA, but I didn't think about Aftershock, because Lamb of God's playing Aftershock. I think they are. Maybe they're not this year, but anyway, I know Macedon was, so it was kind of one of those things where we just kind of skipped it. But I'm really excited to bring the new project to bring this band to the Bay Area, especially because, I have Bay Area roots. Mark's from the Bay Area, Phil's from the Bay Area. And I've never played in a band with Mark or Phil.
Which is weird because, let's be honest,
or Kyle.
You played in a lot of Bay Area bands.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, we've all known each other's bands throughout, our youth, and known each other, respect each other's playing. And just never really had a chance to put it all together, and it's been great playing with these guys. I mean, every one of these guys are solid dudes, great musicians. They're fun to be around. They're intelligent. Like, I mean, it's just a great overall hang. I mean, I can't say enough about how good it feels to play with Kyle, with Mark, with Phil. And I've been playing with Kerry forever, so that goes without saying for me that I love playing with Kerry. But it's going to be good to play back in the Bay. It's going to be kind of a homecoming for a majority of the band.
Do you think it's going to be almost like a little bit of nerves playing in front of the family, or is it going to be just like going home again?
No, it's going to be fun to play. I haven't played in the Bay since for maybe almost 5 years, and it's been over 5 years now. So it's just gonna be great. It's always good to play the Bay Area. It's where I grew up, so yeah, it's hometown.
Now, in this whole whirlwind year of Slayer KKB and it being on the heels of post-pandemic, how did you find time for another project?
Well, so you're talking about Borderwars.
I am.
So Borderwars, which most people probably, matter of fact, nobody's really heard it yet. She has. But I was approached by Vince Graham, who's the singer, guitar player, songwriter for Borderwars, and he's always kind of wanted me to do an album with him, and he just always thought that I would just say no. And so he reached out to me through social media, and he said, hey, would you like to hear a song? We'd love to have you record with us, but um, you know, uh, he thought I'd just shoot it down. So he sent me one song. Me and my wife listened to it, and we were like, this is great. So, it wasn't my favorite song, but it was a good song, and it's on the album. But then he sent me another song. I'm like, this is fantastic. So then I'm like, so we started talking, and I'm like, yeah, send me the rest. So he sent me the rest, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. We listened to it in the car all the time, and so that's kind of what happened. And I just learned all the songs. We set a date for recording, and I went in and recorded the record. So it wasn't so much as finding the time. It's I had everybody's got the time. You just have to set the time aside and do it. Look at a guy like Phil Demmel. He's busy all the time. How does he do it? He just he makes it happen. So that's kind of what happened with Borderwars. Vince did like the majority, all of it, of the heavy lifting. The songs were written. They were structured. He had vocals for most of everything done. But it's like one of those things where I didn't have to do a lot. I did contribute to it, but I'm looking forward to doing more stuff with him because I think he's really talented. He's not a musician by trade. He is a musician, and he's really good. But he does something else for a living, and he's just great at playing music. So it's really interesting. It's like when I play the stuff for people, they're, who is this guy? Where did he come from?
Yeah. Who is he? Where did he come from?
He played in the Bay Area band called Borderwars. Actually, he never got rid of the name. I keep trying to get him to change the name, but I think he's in love with it, so it's probably going to stay that way. I've got some really good names. Oh. So, but anyway, he was in the Bay Area scene. I think he did, and if you listen to his early stuff, it really kind of sounded too much like what had already happened in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. Too much like Machine Head. Too much like Pantera. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of guys were trying to do that, and when you do that, you're just behind. That's already happened. Those bands are already popular, and so on this record, Vince lived in the Bay Area, but he's originally from France. So he moved from the Bay Area to France. He's back in France now. That's where he lives, and he just kind of said, "Fuck it." He goes, "I'm gonna write these songs. I'm not trying to make it. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm gonna write these songs for me." And we've had conversations about it. When you write songs for yourself, and you're pleased with what you wrote, that's all you can do. And sometimes, more often than not, those songs come out way better than when you're trying to be something you're not.
Or when somebody's pushing you for the next record or the next project or more content.
Yeah, exactly. Some people write slow, some people write quick. That's how it goes. Vince took his time. It took him about 10 years to write all this, but he was taking his time with it, and it's one of those things where, like, I think that with the songs, I was very impressed with the songwriting and the lyrics.
So it looks like we've got Phil making time for Category 7 and Mark with some time for Death Angel. And now you're going to possibly have time for Borderwars, do you think?
I don't know. That depends.
With him in France and you here, is it going to be something you could put together to tour with?
If I had a lot of time to do it, yes. But also there's Kerry King as well. So when all those guys are off doing other things, Kerry and I will be working on new material. Because another record has to happen. And so if you're off doing something else, you're pretty much not focusing on what the other thing. So yes, I'm gonna try to get Borderwars signed to a record label. I want people to hear it because I think it's that good. The rest will take care of itself if it's meant to be. That's what's going to happen. That's not just tossing it in the air and saying, well, maybe. But I have to have the time. But also, I'm committed to Kerry King. So that's got to happen. So it's one of those things where I want to get another record done with Kerry. So when we have the time, we're going to get in the studio and we're going to bang it out. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where
Kerry said you have to do that over the winter break, right?
This winter break?
I think so. He said right after tour you guys are going to the studio. So I don't know if he meant this run of like Mexico, Australia, or if he meant after the January, February run.
No, I think that would happen when all the touring is done.
Okay.
So when we like I said, when we have time, like we may have some time to get. It just depends on if we're not booked to do anything. and we've got a ton of material already demoed. Some stuff didn't make it to this record, but there's like, I mean, there's a ton of songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough for another record plus, still. So, and not to mention that he's still writing other stuff, and that was kind of the thing when we got together. It was keep writing, because the pandemic happened. Kerry he was on fire. He kept writing, send me stuff. I'm like, this is great, keep writing.
And he was just crossing the country constantly to come into the studio with you when you guys were in the writing process, wasn't he?
He was writing beforehand, and he would send me recorded stuff from his iPhone, and he'd send me like ideas of what he wanted drum wise. Like he'd chart it out, write it out in words, and I'd look at it and go, okay, I kind of know what he wants, and learn the arrangements. And the idea is let's get together. So let's get together and hit the ground running. So instead of us trying to figure out like, hey, let's write and get together in a rehearsal studio, he's already writing. It's like, keep writing. But when we finally get together, we should be able to demo. My goal was to demo 10 songs. Mm-hmm. Like the first time we got together, and the first 7 days we got together, we demoed 10 songs. Like I said, when I say demo them, they weren't like the finished version of them. But we walked away with 10 songs.
Those were the rough mixes I heard in 22. I think that Kerry played for me.
Those were probably those. I don't know which ones you heard, but you probably heard the ones that were a little more refined.
Okay.
As opposed to the ones for the first round, they were good, but they got better. Obviously, that's what happens. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. Do I have time for Borderwars? Yes, I'd like to have time for Borderwars, but to keep the ball rolling with Kerry King, we have to keep that going too. So, yes, I would like to do some stuff with Borderwars, and to have time to do it. That's great, but it can't detract from the progress I make with Kerry.
Of course. Now, how would you describe the Borderwars sound? Because when I heard it today, I was like, I kind of didn't expect it. It doesn't remind me of, Black Gates, or definitely not Truth About Seafood.
Oh, God. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
But it's heavy, which I expected, but it's a different kind of heavy, and I'm not sure, like, how do you guys see it? I don't have a description for it. One thing I like about it is not thrash metal, and not because I don't like thrash metal, but it's just I've already, it's like I don't want to keep. If I keep putting out thrash metal records with everybody, then I'm kind of regurgitating the same old thing. Mm-hmm. I want to do something a little different. That's what kind of Vince. He came from the Bay Area scene, so he didn't want to do a thrash metal record. He already tried that. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the first thing that appealed to me. Well, this isn't thrash metal. There's songs on the record, one song called California Kings, which is absolutely a brilliant song, and it's not thrash metal. It's like, it reminds me more of like Metallica, Black Album Metallica. Mm-hmm. And, Black Album Metallica, if you get that, Metallica got it right. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can get that right, then you got a good song. And that's what California King reminds me. It's got great vocals, great lyrics, great guitar riff, just a good song. And that's one of the things that like about it. It's just they're just good songs. There's still aggressive stuff on there. It's still heavy, but it's just I don't know. To describe it the best way, it's not anything you'd think it would be. It's just good songs. You gotta listen to it. If I had to, the first thing that popped into my head this morning was like a heavier Soundgarden, Monster Magnet kind of amalgam. That thick, heavy sound that those bands are kind of known for, but with a strong vocal. If that makes any sense.
It does. I wouldn't have. When you listen to something new, I find it fascinating. I know I like the music. I don't categorize it.
Right. It's tough to do. It's just everyone's ear picks something different. But because we can't play it.
Well, yeah. But everybody will form an opinion on it, and I like. What did one guy say? I sent it to a friend of mine. He said it reminded him of Mudvayne. And I'm like,
okay.
And he named the song. I'm like, I never in a million years would have thought that, and I still don't hear it. But that's what everybody's gonna. When you hear something new, my experience, I've been in enough bands that are new and people haven't heard them before. Like for lack of a better thing to grab hold of, everybody kind of goes, well, it reminds me of this, this, and this. And I find that kind of fascinating because what I get from it is entirely different what everybody else is going to get from it. Until you get familiar with it, then it becomes Borderwars. until that point, you're kind of going, well, that reminds me of that. That reminds me of this. As long as you don't say it sucks, I'm happy. And so it's like, and not you, I mean in general, people.
Yeah. I did not say it sucks.
No, you didn't.
I didn't.
Not yet. She hasn't. But yeah, I mean, it's I mean, what do I get from it? I just get that it's good music. That's how I feel about it.
Now, how have you been able to also keep up with being a teacher throughout all this? Because you are still giving drum lessons, which I think is incredible. I know people love taking lessons from you, and you have students that have been with you for like decades.
I've had some people that I'm still teaching. I'm like, when am I going to run out of stuff to teach them? I think I started off teaching a long time ago just for fun. Like somebody would say, I don't know how to play drums, and I go, well, I'm going to teach you how to play a drum beat. It'll take me a half hour. No, I can't play drums. Well, yes, you can. And pretty soon after a half hour, I'd have somebody playing a drum beat. And they're like, oh man, I never knew I could play drums. Well, yeah, you can. And it's not that difficult. But it's I think that beginning of it, I had fun doing it. And then, but I had also had like, some apprehension because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to really teach somebody or whatever. But I started doing it, and the reactions have always been when people leave, they're like, this was great. Like, this is more, it's always been super positive what people get out of it. And that always surprises me, but that's what I want. Mm-hmm. Like, if you walk out of there and you get something from it, then I've done what I set out to do. Nobody's ever walked out of a lesson and just said, it said nothing.
They didn't show up just wanting to meet you.
That's happened too.
Oh.
That's happened
okay.
too. Very few. Those are fewer than I've had. Maybe two people. One guy didn't know how to play drums, and he just wanted to sit down and talk. I'm like, okay, let's have a seat. Let's talk. But no matter what people want, they're asking you. Like I had a guy when we did Riot Fest. He was dying to get a lesson from me. He's from Scotland, and I already had 2 lessons that day. That's a lot for a show day because they're an hour each.
Yeah, plus you warm up for a solid hour before you play the set.
Yeah, right? and it was our first show back. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, well, the guy actually bumped into me and my wife when we were walking over to catering. He's like, hey man, like if you have time for a lesson, I'm like, okay, let's do it. So he didn't want, he was a drummer, but he didn't want to me to show him anything. He wanted to know how I had come up with certain parts, like my mindset to coming up with certain parts. How did you come up with it? He knew everything he was talking about. And that was interesting because it wasn't just, okay, I'm going to teach you hand technique today, or I'm going to figure out why. Sometimes people come in and they're like, I can't play fast enough. My hands I can't play fast enough with. I'm too tight. So I have them play, and I go, okay, this is the problem. And, it usually always fixes what people are trying to achieve. But this guy was totally different. He was talking about ditto head, like a certain part of the song. You play this in odd time. I'm like, do I? It's like, so it's really fascinating. Everybody wants a little something different out of it. I make the time to do it because I get something out of it too. I get the satisfaction knowing I taught somebody something, but then it reinforces things about my playing because I'm teaching them positive things that got me to where I am. So in other words, like, if somebody has a problem, I can probably fix it because I had to fix it in my playing. I wasn't born a great drummer. It's like, I've had to work hard to be a good drummer. And that's what everybody has to do. Some people are born with it, and it comes easy to them. Other people have to work for it, and most people have to work for it. If you work for it, you're going to get better. And that's mostly what I tell people.
You're the accidental teacher. I can't imagine somebody would have come to you after high school and been like, hey, you know what? You're going to be a teacher.
No. But my dad was a teacher, though. So he wasn't a drum teacher. I don't know if it's in my blood or not, but, he was a teacher.
Yeah. So I think that instructional kind of a way to talk to people about learning.
Yeah, I guess it's the way my mind works. It works that way. I guess I have a lot of patience. I've been told that. And I think if you're going to teach people, you have to have patience. Because, some people don't, and so they won't do it because they themselves probably get a little frustrated with the process of it. Because you have to kind of go over and over sometimes the same thing you're trying to teach. So you've already told somebody something and they get it, But also, if you're trying to teach somebody something, you also have to realize that maybe they haven't fully integrated that into their first nature part of their brain. So you come back a little later and you ask them the same question again, they've forgotten it. So then you reiterate it and you pound things into their head, and that takes a lot of patience to do that. But it's that some people don't have that, other people do. So maybe that's why.
If you have room for new students, how do they get to you?
Through my website, Paul Bostaph Drums. Yep. And I try to think about that. I'm never any good at that. But yeah, they can go to my website and they can book lessons with me. I do lessons online. I do Zoom lessons. And then I also do backstage lessons too. And for the current U.S. tour, that you can get backstage lessons still.
So January 15th in San Francisco, somebody could book a lesson
Absolutely. With you. Yeah, I'll book 2 lessons a day. Also, for Australia, I'm probably going to offer that as well. So we'll see.
Awesome. And just to be confirming to people, there are 0 Slayer dates on the books right now, right?
Yeah, we played our last one. Yeah.
Because that's what everybody's going to say. It's like, well, but when's the next Slayer? Because they did Slayer again.
Well, if everybody's asking that question, I am too, but I don't have the answer to that question. So, that Aftershock was the last one, and, we all hope that there would be more. So, it's fun to play Slayer songs. So, hopefully that can happen in the future,
But as of right now?
No, that was the last show.
Okay.
So.
Awesome.